overall if we look in Europe. And I think it's one of the most telling graphs that I could show you. And I'm trying to avoid showing graphs, but there are a couple of really interesting ones I've put into this presentation. This is a graph of how many workers exist in a society. And here we're comparing, in fact, there's an error on the graph. We're comparing France, Germany, the United Kingdom, Russia, Italy, and Japan, and the United States. How many workers there are to retirees in a society. And as you can see, back in 1990, and I can't actually show you this because I'll be warned, don't go in front of a speaker. If you go back to 1990, in a country like Russia, there were 6 workers to every retiree. This position has changed, and by 2050, there will more or less be perhaps 2 workers to every retiree, or 1.5 or 1.8 workers to every retiree, even in the United Kingdom, certainly in Italy, even in France. And as a long-term trend going forward, the amount of people in work is being reduced, and the amount of retirees, you and me, who will live longer and longer and longer, and we'll come back to that a little bit later, are increasing. And it's a critical challenge, I think, for the world, for any economy, for us as a society. Forget about your industry for one second. As a society, to boost again the amount of workers. We can't just live off retirees. They cost too much. Workers have got to be there. And it's a lesson that Europe is learning right now, and it's a lesson that we need to learn, certainly for the future. Europe is also learning this lesson. They're learning a lesson that they can't just provide everything for their people all the time. The notion of the nanny state, where Europeans were protected, where they had a pension, where they could rely upon the state for the rest of their life, this notion has indeed been diluted. The state will no longer just provide in Europe. And Europeans have to get used to the fact that they're going to have to look after their own finances and have their own financial products to protect them. It's not just the state. We in South Africa, though, are still moving into an environment, and we're still in this mindset that the state will provide in South Africa. And the state cannot provide indefinitely, whether we are here now or, as we've seen, in the UK or in France or in Greece for that matter. It's a critical lesson for us to learn in South Africa that the state has limitations and that individuals are going to have to look after their own particular futures, not just rely upon the state. I mean, the news was so bad coming out of Europe over the course of the last few weeks that the British still invoked Prince Charles to come and give some merriment to the poor Brits out there by getting him to read the weather forecast. He was dubbed the Prince of Gales by one of the UK tabloid newspapers. And I mean, it gave the Brits something just to be a little bit more relaxed and sort of to laugh at over the course of the last while, because the news has been so bad. What's even funnier, of course, is to watch Camilla do the weather forecast. And if you haven't seen Camilla do the sort of funny, fancy weather forecast, it's rather amusing. Now, it's been a rough environment, and I hope that none of you whisper those sweet nothings in your partner's ear when you go out dancing at night, or for that matter, I hope none of you have consumed this rather unpleasant and indigestible breakfast cereal over the course of the last while. Part of the problem, and I don't mind saying this to an audience which of course is a corporate audience, an audience which some of you might have links even into some of these companies. Part of the global problem has been the inefficiencies, and I'm putting it mildly, with the way many of the world's largest financial companies have been run and managed, some of them not even existing anymore. And we're moving into an era, and Joe mentioned it absolutely correctly, an era where reputation and an era where transparency is becoming even more critical, particularly in your industry. And really, we can blame all sorts of institutions, politicians for the problems that we've had. But really, the ineffectual and often criminal management of so many of the boards of these various companies really, I believe, should shoulder much of the blame going forward. And as a result, our future, in a sense, and I hope none of you put your trash out outside your door in those rather nice Louis Vuitton designer trash bags. But we are moving into an era of what I call the end of excess, where flashiness, open shows of wealth, I think, is now frowned upon. We in South Africa, still a little behind the curve on this particular issue, I might add, but in Europe, the end of excess is with us. What's with us seriously in business is ethics. You know, regulation and accountability is with this industry. Companies are competing in a more globally regulated environment than ever before. A review of accounting approaches globally, as you know, and all of us are being watched every step of the way. The checks and balances, the electronic linkages to watch what we do, how we move, where we take money from place A to place B. We are going to be watched, and we're going to be watched even more in future, and we've got to work within those